The political climate is getting rougher in Berlin as Germany is preparing for snap elections. That's weeks after the three-party coalition government failed. One of the reasons it failed was the debt break in the German constitution, which some are supporting as a fiscally conservative measure and others reject as a hindrance to economic growth. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin on this story. Lars, what are the current developments around this debt break?
Thanks for having me. Well, I suppose we have to look back and just quickly talk about what exactly the debt break is. It was a political idea and later put into the constitution that bans the government from expanding federal debt in order to balance the books. It all started in 2009. The German government had just spent billions to support the country's banks and financial system after the worldwide financial crisis. But that had worried investors. It had weakened bond markets. And the idea was to implement a policy that would encourage confidence. So they decided that the government would have to balance its budget every year without amassing new debt. So basically by saving money somewhere in order to spend it elsewhere. For a long time, that made sense. After all, constantly adding to the country's debt leaves the government with ever-rising costs and less money to actually work with. Also, it's unfair to future generations to leave them all that debt. However, one could argue it's also unfair to future generations to let the country's infrastructure crumble, to fail to invest and threaten the country's economy and growth by strictly adhering to a concept that might have been helpful a few years ago and isn't any longer.
And Lars, what is the significance of this debt break in most recent talks?
It's very interesting. While the conservative and business-friendly Liberal Party, the FDP, insisted on keeping the debt break in place and even pushed the coalition to its recent implosion, they are not finding much support outside their own group here. Most economists are actually saying that in our current environment, it's simply not possible to keep it in place. That's at least partially due to developments outside Germany and obviously outside German influence, like the election of Donald Trump in the US, which will undoubtedly leave Berlin in need to spend a lot more on its military as the support system of NATO is weakened. Then we have the war in Ukraine and the support Germany is lending as the Ukrainians defend their country against Russia. It costs Germany billions as well, and it can't be paid out of the regular budget. And then, as I hinted on, there's massive investments needed in Germany. We literally have bridges collapsing and other enormous challenges keeping our infrastructure in shape. And everyone knows it. So even conservative parties that used to be in favor of the debt break say now that it has to be loosened.